This is the review of the 2025 Nissan Murano. Nissan has redesigned the vehicle with a new look and new powertrain. Its only offering is a 2-liter turbo engine with a 9-speed automatic transmission. The Murano is a midsize two-row SUV. Many midsize SUVs in this category have a more boxy shape. However, you'll see that here, the Murano's new styling has a more swoopy design, kind of like the Aria EV. Now, that can have pluses and minuses. The swoopy design can be more aesthetically pleasing, but as you'll discover, it also can take away from your interior cabin space and cargo room. Aesthetically, I find the design to be very appealing. I like the style of it, I like the smooth lines and the swoop. However, once I actually get into the vehicle and I see how that styling affects my interior cabin space, it makes me reconsider my decision. But before we dive deeper, let's talk about what we got for our test program. We purchased a 2025 Nissan Murano SL all-wheel drive. The base price was $46,560, and we got $1,370 worth of options. The destination price was $1,390, bringing our total sticker price to $49,320. The final assembly point for the Murano is Smyrna, Tennessee. It's really easy to get into the Murano. We love that it has traditional door handles, and it's really nice that the seats are at hip height, so you can slide in and out. The only problem here is that swooping design that I talked about earlier kind of interferes when you're trying to get in and you might bump your head, so just remember to duck. In comparison, when you're getting into the rear, you have a really nice wide boxy entrance, and so it's a lot easier than getting into the front and you don't have to duck. Some of our testers felt that the rear seat could be a little bit more comfortable. They wanted more thigh support. I actually found it to be decently comfortable. It's nice and plush. It is a flatter cushion, so you won't get much bolstering to support you laterally. You will find also, though, that the rear cabin space is pretty limited. This is what I was saying earlier. Once you get inside, you find that it's actually kind of a small, big car. It looks like a big vehicle or a mid-sized SUV from the outside, but inside, you don't have a ton of cabin space. This would be more ideal for families that have kids in forward-facing car seats or boosters or maybe preteens. A plus for your booster-age kids and belted rear passengers is that Nissan does a good job of putting advanced seatbelt technology in these rear outboard seating positions, as well as side torso airbags. The Murano competes with other mid-size SUVs like the Toyota Crown Signia, Subaru Outback, and Honda Passport. You can compare side by side our exclusive ratings on consumerreports.org using the compare tool. The front seats are pretty comfortable and supportive. They're nice and plush, and many of our testers agreed. They also found it to be comfortable over long trips, which is always a good thing. Personally, I wish that the front edge of the seat had more tilt. I have to raise the seat up a lot in order to comfortably see over the dash. The nice styling that you find outside the vehicle translates to the interior as well. As you can see, it looks pretty good in here. There's a lot of nice surfaces and cool styling. One of our testers even called it near luxury. At that $50,000 price point, you get more of an upscale feel inside. Even things like the leather wrap steering wheel, padding and leather wrap here on the center console, the piano black glossy trim. It just feels like a more luxury styled vehicle, which is nice. Even things like the door sill and the dash have leather on them, and there's some additional padding here. So it just feels more like you're in a luxury car. There's actually quite a bit of interior cargo room. You have a nice little cubby here where you can keep things like keys, chapstick, your garage door opener. The center console bin is pretty deep and it opens up really nice and wide, so I can put a lot of good stuff in there. There's even a under the center console storage area. The door pockets are also well sized, so you can fit a lot there, including a decent sized beverage, 2 cup holders, and there is a charging pad here that has some good grip to it, so your phone's not gonna slide around. The controls in the vehicle are a little bit of a hot mess. Something that they did really well is that there is a really nice large volume button that has solid detents to it, easy to find, easy to use. That's kind of the only good part though. The hazard button is to the left of the volume button. It's really small and not in an obvious place. In case of emergency, you're kind of hunting a little bit. The climate control buttons are in 2 places. They're in the screen, which we'll come back to. They're also here on this wood panel that is backlit when the vehicle is on. The buttons are touch capacitive and they do give some haptic feedback, but they don't always do what you want them to do. So you kind of have to press in on them as well, which is not clear. And when you're driving and you think that you've made the adjustments, you might not have. When you look at the infotainment screen, there's a decent amount of real estate here that could be utilized that's not. Instead, we end up with these really small icons that are very close together, and it's easy to press more than one icon at the same time. Overall though, a lot of these icons could be larger and easier to use, particularly when you're driving. On the steering wheel itself, you have a variety of button types. You have buttons that you actually press. You have a scroll wheel that is at an angle, which is also confusing. And some of the buttons are not on the steering wheel, particularly the ones with steering wheel icons. They're actually to the left of the steering wheel. So the button for the steering wheel heat, as well as your lane centering assist button, is also to the left of the steering wheel and not on the steering wheel where they should be. In addition to all of that, the buttons on the steering wheel are backlit and they're supposed to auto dim. Several of our testers found that it was inconsistent. From the steering wheel, you can control both your instrument cluster as well as the center screen. However, to do that, you have to toggle between the two screens because you're using the same set of buttons and controls. This scroll wheel that's at a diagonal for unknown purposes is what you use on the two different screens, but you have to move between them. And you might accidentally click the wrong one and not be adjusting what you think you're adjusting. All this to say, the controls are pretty complicated and they could definitely use some improvement. The vehicle does come with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, which is a plus. Nissan does standard equip their vehicles with a rear occupant end of trip reminder. This is the type of system that is going to give you an audio-visual message to remind you to check the back seat for passengers at the end of your trip. The only problem is though that Nissan does not turn the system on for consumers. You have to turn it on yourself. And if your dealership does not tell you about the system, you're not going to know that it's there for you and you won't turn it on as a preventative action. It's also kind of hard to find. So I want to show you how to turn this system on. You have to go into your steering wheel settings, go down to vehicle settings, go down to the rear door alert, which you see is off, and turn it on to horn and alert. This will give you the message at the end of the trip to check the back seats. And then if you exit the vehicle and lock the car without accessing your rear, the vehicle will also honk at you to grab your attention again. CR really encourages you to turn the system on because you never know when you might need it. We also have been telling Nissan to make it factory enabled for consumers for years, and they still have not, which is why we do not give them any credit for having this system. We love a traditional gear shifter, and this is not that. Not only is it this piano style keys, they're low, they are glossy and backlit, so not super obvious and easy to see, but their placement and the size of them makes it challenging and unintuitive to use while driving. I do like that to access the cargo area, there is a nice clear button right here above the branding. However, once you open the cargo door, you see that your rear cargo space is not what you would expect it to be for a vehicle of this size. In fact, it's even smaller than the Nissan Rogue, which is a smaller vehicle than the Murano. That should not be. So this is kind of disappointing. You have a couple of small cubby holes, your wheel wells are kind of impeding on the space. That swoopy styling once again comes back to bite us because it is limiting how much room you actually have here, whereas some of its competitors have a nice boxy cargo area that gives you nice square space to fit a lot of stuff. It is nice that Nissan gives you the option to have a spare tire, which are becoming like harder and harder to find. We still wish you didn't have to pay for it though. The rear seat has a 60-40 split, which you can fold down the seats from the rear seat itself with the handles on top of the seat backs, or from the cargo area with these handy little levers that are going to release. And if I was taller, easy for me to push those seat backs down. While you don't get a lot of cargo room if you have passengers in the back, if you don't have passengers in the back and you fold down those seat backs, it does give you a pretty nice flat surface that you could load larger things pretty easily. Once you get past the styling and the aesthetics, driving the Murano can be kind of disappointing. Let's start with visibility. While front and side visibility is pretty good, you have nice wide windows, the A-pillars are pretty thin, the side view mirrors are door mounted, it gives you a pretty good view. However, the rear visibility, not so much. The rear windshield is pretty squat, so it doesn't really fill your rear view mirror, which is what I prefer. And on top of that, the rear pillars are really thick. So your view when you are trying to check your blind spots, etc., not great at all. In addition to all of that, the actual engine and transmission is not great. It's very lurchy. If you were driving only on flat roads, on the highway, at a steady state, then sure, it's fine. Once the vehicle gets up to speed, it does pretty okay. However, anytime you need to access that additional power, or you're coming from a stop and you're trying to get into traffic, you'll find that the vehicle doesn't quite deliver, and you have a very lurchy experience that is just unpleasant. You end up with a really unrefined driving experience, which is the biggest deal breaker for me. Even if you liked everything else about the car, I would not be able to tolerate this engine on a daily basis. The handling on the Murano is decent, but if you're looking for a sporty, engaging driving experience, this will not be that car. The EPA estimates 23 miles per gallon overall for the Murano, which is not that great for the class. When it comes to handling noise, it actually does a pretty good job of giving you that isolated luxury feel. You don't get a ton of wind or road noise in the vehicle. A little bit of engine noise, which some of our testers really liked, but it does add to that luxury component. The Murano's suspension does a decent job handling single impacts, but if there's multiple issues in the road, it's going to be a really choppy experience. I really love that Nissan does a great job of putting standard safety features into vehicles that many of their competitors only include as optional or just not even available. And I love the emphasis on making sure that our backseat passengers have the most amount of safety available to them. If you want a car that looks and feels luxurious in terms of the styling, materials, has a ton of standard safety features, then the 2025 Murano is a good choice for you. You'll just have to be forgiving of its unrefined engine, poor visibility, and the fact that it's really just a small, big car inside. For more on the Murano's test results and other midsize SUVs, check out consumerreports.org.